And I am live at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. Somebody told me today, they said, hey, what you should do as a trick is start your show a few minutes before 5 my time, which is 8 p.m. Eastern time. Because, Tim Pool starts, I think. And then you can get the people before they tune into Tim Pool. Because he told me that once you tune in to Tim Pool, that it's hard to change the channel, he said. I was like, really? I never find it difficult when Lift the Veil comes on. So thanks for joining me. I have, let's see. You guys doing okay? Looking for ways to profit off the election coming up. I was looking at all the different things you can bet on. So some of them are really interesting. One, I think you got to I have to decide whether to deposit more money into the account. I already built up some betting on previous elections where I had a streak of winners where I doubled my money every time. But now I want to bet more because I like betting on politics. It's legal. Unlike everything else in this puritanical country where you can't gamble on anything. Like, I couldn't play. It's amazing to me that I'm not allowed to play poker on the internet. I would do that. And live stream it. Because I'd lose, because I'd have to make money somehow. Otherwise, I would do it and just do it if I was really good at it. I studied poker. I'm kind of good at it, but not good enough to really win money over time. But it's fun. And you can't play it on the internet, but maybe you will be able to here in California. If you're in California, you've seen the Indian tribes. Native American tribes. You can say Indian sometimes, right? And isn't it the Bureau of Indian Affairs? That's a weird one. That one and queer. Queer, I know, is a weird one because it was a slur and now it's not. Indian, I feel like you weren't supposed to say, but then sometimes they do say it. What was I saying it in reference to anyway? I can't even remember. How's it going? Happy Wednesday. Happy early start to the show. See, I don't even run one of those things. Instead of one of those things that says show is about to start, you actually get to hear me say something, but it's just not as valuable as the content that comes up after the show officially starts. What do you guys like to listen to? I was listening to Quite Frankly just before I came on. He's got like a QAnon type on there who says it's all going to work out, that the justice is coming. Well, not explicitly like a QAnon type, but it is the QAnon theme, which is that there's going to be justice, and Trump will probably be behind it. Like the bad people are actually going down. So are you from that camp? There's that camp, and then there's doomers. I probably have more doomers that listen to the show. I think probably it's all going to hell. I'm in between. But if I really wanted to be funny, sometimes I think about, I know what it takes to create a good cult or a conspiracy thing, because I followed QAnon. What would it be interesting to create a new thing like QAnon that does something similar, just like make stuff up that that people want to happen, like the arrest of Hillary Clinton or something. Say that there's going to be justice and somebody, I don't know who to get behind though. Trump is so unique. He was so well suited to that conspiracy theory. The Golden Dawn. All right, I can't take the music. Let's see if my intro will work today. Let me see. Okay, I gotta figure that out. What else do you guys like to listen to? I have trouble because everything's my cup of tea. I listen to that guy, Jimmy Dore, sometimes. He's pretty good. You guys listen to this show, and we try to make it a regular show. I have news today about the Alex Jones thing. Yeah, that's the other thing I was thinking about. I was like, could I come up with something so offensive that I could get sued for $1 billion? I was actually thinking about that today. I was like, what could it possibly be? Because I could never imagine. That's what they got Alex Jones for. $1 billion for implying and then hosting some people who said that Sandy Hook was a hoax. So because of that, he got fined $1 billion. I had on, and he wasn't the only one who said Sandy Hook was a hoax, but he's the only one that got found guilty by default. Never had to be proved in a court of law. And then the jury came back today. 965 million. Probably somebody's doing the gematria on it. Some people are saying he's definitely not Bill Hicks, because if he was, he would reveal that now to get out of the judgment. So I don't know. It's possible. People are trying to tell me though that he's supposed to be 48. I think 48 years old, Alex Jones. He was on TV today talking about it. He says InfoWars isn't going away. All right, you ready for the show to start? Thanks for being here. Let's see. Okay, cue musical intro. Boy, that's brilliant. I do think some things in the world are real. Like you guys. You guys are real. Most of you. Most of my listeners, I think, are not just in my head. I think I have the metrics to prove it. You've taken a leap of faith today. What is that sound? And I apologize if you take offense. I'm a little offended myself. Welcome to our show. Welcome to the future. What it is, joining you live from sunny California. It's a beautiful day today. I'm your host, Nathan Stoltman. I bring you the news, the real news. Yes, or something like it. I tell you what's happening on Twitter, basically, like what's happening in the sphere, I try to clue you in on what's going on, like what the trends are. So we talk about various subjects. One thing we talked about in the last show, and I'll run a poll for this, because, people are different people. I have a co-host for this show sometimes, but we have different beliefs on things. And she was asking me about Tulsi Gabbard. So Tulsi Gabbard made a big splash yesterday with a Twitter video that had over 5 million views, I believe. She had a YouTube video, which was her first podcast, which when I saw it had less than 100,000 views still on YouTube, but it was widely consumed on Twitter. She ended up going on Tucker Carlson. She reported on Twitter today that she had the top podcast in society and culture on Apple iTunes, and that she had the number 10 top podcast overall. This is Tulsi. So she, is trending basically. And then so I listened to her on Joe Rogan. She talked about a bunch of controversial stuff, like a lot of trans stuff was on the show. So I wonder, because there are people, and there are people who said yesterday, and then there's my co-host who might come back sometime. Is like, do you trust Tulsi Gabbard? I said, yeah, yeah. Do you trust Tulsi? That's a tough question. Do you trust? But that was the question I was asked. So I'll ask you guys. This is one of the memes that's out about her today. Right here. There she is with an eye patch that says World Economic Forum, because she was a World Economic Forum young global leader at one point. And then people associate her with the Council on Foreign Relations too, because she's on one of those lists too. But what do people want? Like, I'm curious. What does she have to say to earn people's? Because I've just never had anybody say that she said something that they disagreed with, except like there was some criticism about when she was in Congress, they passed this thing about Israel BDS protesters, and she signed on with it, even though the law didn't do anything. It was something that was anti-BDS. It said BDS was bad, and she signed that. She's probably like really pressured to. But other than that, I haven't heard anything. I've heard people say she's a gun grabber, but then she says explicitly that she's not. So I want to know, who can we trust? And then, do you not trust any politicians? Like, what's cooler to do? I'm asking for a friend. Like, what's going to get me more views and more donations? Should I say that nobody's trustworthy and that it's all a sham? Because that's one way to go. Is that it's all bullshit, all of it. And you can't trust anybody. And then I'd have to throw out, like, I like certain politicians are okay. But you know what? Nobody's perfect. Maybe that's an important lesson to remember, is that nobody is perfect, really. Like, take Kanye West, for example. He's problematic in a lot of ways. But on the other hand, sometimes he says stuff that's really important that nobody else is willing to say, that people need to hear. So maybe we need to put up with the parts we disagree with. So that in the case of Tulsi Gabbard, for example, yeah, maybe she was associated with the World Economic Forum, but she says a lot of stuff. Like, you can't not agree with her. I don't see how you can not agree with her on pretty much all the stuff she says. I don't know if she's going to be, she says she's not going to be a Republican. And then do you guys not like Rand Paul either? Because Rand Paul is cool. And like Thomas Massey, most of the time, is pretty cool. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene is a clown. But like, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a clown who cheated on her husband with some like tantric sex guru, which isn't very Christian, I don't think. But she also spoke up in favor of, in support of Alex Jones. So how can I stay mad at her? On the other hand, J.K. Rowling, you would think, do you guys like J.K. Rowling in general? Before I tell you what she did today, would you have said up until today, oh, I like J.K. Rowling, she's cool? She talks about feminist issues. And when I say feminist issues, I mean trans stuff, women's rights stuff. So she has been known for speaking about that. Do you know what she said about Alex Jones today? I'll show you that. J.K. Rowling says that it's not enough. She says that $1 billion is not enough. J.K. Rowling, still not enough. There's literally nothing he could do that could make right what he put those families through. But I hope this breaks him. I hope this breaks him, she says, because of what he put the families through, talking about Sandy Hook. So that's it. That's it. And that's what a lot of people think. And so, and actually, things change a lot sometimes. Like I'm back on YouTube. I wasn't for a long time. But like one of the reasons was I kept getting censored on YouTube every time I defended Alex Jones. They would actually censor it before, up until this trial. So I am thankful in a way for the Sandy Hook trial, because it gives you a chance to talk about Sandy Hook. And then they played some of the clips and stuff, from where people were saying that Sandy Hook was a hoax and stuff. They played it in court. I love when they play Anderson Cooper's nose disappearing when everybody said he was on a green screen. I love that they had to play Robbie Parker smiling before he delivered his speech. And they had to play all that stuff. They had to play the people walking, what they said, were walking in circles around the firehouse. They had to play all that stuff. Otherwise, you don't get to see it. I was thinking about making a video like, oh, here are the things people said about Sandy Hook, the reason people thought it was fake. But I don't know if that'd be allowed. I know it wouldn't have been before, but if I say it the right way, actually on YouTube, if you're debunking something, you can say it. So sometimes I'll say to you, for example, I'll say conspiracy theorists say, not I'm saying, I'll say conspiracy theorists say. Like, for example, conspiracy theorists say that the vaccine makes people have heart attacks, like the Surgeon General in Florida. But the CDC says they're safe and effective. See? That's how you can get away with saying some things. So they say you are allowed to talk. When you go through a list for being monetized on YouTube, they say, are you going to talk about anything controversial? And then it's like, oh, are you going to talk about something controversial in the sense that you're going to say people shouldn't do that? That's one option. Or are you going to talk about something controversial? Or are you going to talk about something controversial and be a really bad person? But you can be a good person and still talk about things that are controversial as long as you follow the rules. So like if I wanted to talk about Sandy Hook, for example, I can't tell you, I can't say I think Sandy Hook is what they say. Like I won't even say it. But I can say that I used to think that and I don't anymore. Then what's the difference semantically? What's the difference between Alex Jones? Now he says Sandy Hook really happened. If Alex Jones is so influential, this is a question I have, because they say Alex Jones made people think Sandy Hook was a hoax, I guess, right? I mean, that's got to be the theory of the case. So it's like, oh, nobody would have thought Sandy Hook was a hoax, except that Alex Jones said it. And Alex Jones had his millions of listeners, and then he sold a bunch of pills. As a result of it, got super rich and super famous just because he said Sandy Hook was. But I don't want to say it too much, right? Even though I'm not saying it. See, it's what he said. It's what they say. But now he says it's real. And I used to, at first, when he said it was real, I thought he was being a sellout. But now, after seeing the case, I think maybe he does believe that it was real. And this is the craziest thing about this case. One of the craziest things. It's so wild that the ACLU really, it should be the biggest story on earth. that Alex Jones, that someone was getting fined for saying something that wasn't true, that they believed to be true. So he believed, I'm pretty sure, I think the court proceedings kind of showed that Alex believed it. Staged. He thought they were actors. That's what he believed. And so if he said that, he said what he believed, and he wasn't doing it to intentionally lie about the Sandy Hook parents. But he was found guilty of intentionally lying about them. Now, Alex Jones, I'll tell you more about the story. Alex Jones has supplements, which he's encouraging people to buy right now to support his legal fight. I have coffee, euphemistically. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil, and you can support the show. And that is a payment platform that is not PayPal and only takes 5%. So it goes to a good place. Go to buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil. You can leave a message, and later on in the show, I'll read the messages that I have on buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil. And if you want to support the show a different way, you can also check out our t-shirts at truthclothing.io. So people mention the slippery slope. I saw someone mention in the chat the slippery slope. Yeah, because where does it go from here? And that's the next question. What now that he was found guilty because he said something that wasn't true? They're saying, right? The judgment. He said something that wasn't true that hurt people's feelings. So, therefore, if you say something that isn't true, that hurts someone's feelings, even if you believe it's true, you could be held liable to the tune of up to maybe $1 billion. So, yeah, I mean, you can help me think of something. I was just trying to think, wow, what could I possibly come up with that's so offensive? So offensive that it's worth that much money. There's no way he made that much money talking about Sandy Hook. It's not going to bring any of the children back. He didn't actually kill anybody. He says he's going to carry on. Let me show you. And he says definitely buy supplements. People are sharing this.
And from Remington, ain't going to be happening. Ain't no money.
Our verdict as to damages in this case, we award damages to each plaintiff and against Alex Jones and three.
I killed the kids, folks. I think.
Number one, compensatory damages. Instructions. Fill in both numbers for each plaintiff, then go.
Now remember, I'm in bankruptcy. We got 2 years of appeals. The money you donate does not go to these people. It goes to fight this fraud, and it goes to stabilize the company. They want us shut down. That's why the ambulance chasers did this, why they use these families. So saveinfowars.com. We're fighting Goliath. We'll win because of you. Saveinfowars.com, infowarsstore.com. Double Patriot points, 10% off of 1776 right now at Infowars Store. But you see, you want somebody to fight for you? I'm doing it, and you see what they do. So you want to fight? That's fine. It's your decision. But that's where we are. That's the whacked out system of the left. Did we hit $1 billion, guys? From Remington.
You see what they do. And I'm fighting for you too. And you see what they do. They ban me from PayPal. They kick me off YouTube. You see it. I have to use that more. You see it, guys. But, make sure to fund the war here that we're in. And as much as really genuinely fighting the war here on YouTube, where people could, a normal person could actually run into the video by accident but complete accident. And they might see something that might change their mind about things, might change their mind about Alex Jones, even if they hate him. Oh, did he? He wasn't found guilty in court. He was found guilty by default because he didn't turn over some documents, which it may have been impossible for him to turn over. So that's not, and then he got fined $1 billion, even though they didn't have to prove in court that what he said was defamatory. They didn't prove that. And so, but because of this judgment, people are going to think that they did prove it. People are going to go around now thinking that, oh my God, if you say something that hurts my feelings, I can sue you. And people can get sued for saying outrageous lies that hurt people's feelings. I don't know. Like, for example, I had on Wolfgang Halbig. So now are they going to sue me next? I had Wolfgang Halbig on like 3 times. Because I don't know. He had some kind of record and history of school safety. He's a state trooper. He's involved in crisis response for schools. I had him on my show like 3 times. So then, and we didn't say when I had him on, I don't think we said that Sandy Hook didn't happen or anything. 100%, just some of his questions. But can they sue me? Because I know for a fact that I didn't do anything wrong or that would break the law or was defamatory in any way to anybody. But I still platformed Wolfgang Halbig, and that's kind of what Alex Jones got in trouble for. So if Alex Jones can get in trouble for that, then where does it stop? So obviously no American should be happy with this decision, but Americans are. Several of them are. They're just like, this is justice. I can understand it. You guys watched the trial. I watched a lot of the trial. I was worried that it wasn't going very well because the families everybody came across very sympathetically, everybody, it was easy to feel sorry for them. And a lot of them were crying and carrying on, and all these bad things happened to them. They said, it just sounded sad. Just sounded really sad. Made me feel bad. I was like, oh, geez. I heard some stories about Sandy Hook. Made me feel bad. So I can understand why they might want to award this kind of money. But once again, it's like, they didn't prove he did it. If they had to prove it, if Alex Jones was allowed to defend himself on a First Amendment basis, then he should have prevailed. But he wasn't allowed to defend himself. Here he is also asking for you to buy supplements. He says the money is not going to go to the families if you buy supplements from him. So
they want to scare everybody away from freedom and scare us away from questioning Uvalde and what really happened there, or Parkland or any other event. And guess what? We're not scared, and we're not going away, and we're not going to stop. And literally, for hundreds of thousands of dollars, I can keep them in court for years. I can appeal this stuff. We can stand up against this travesty, against the billions of dollars they want. It's a joke. So please go to InfoWarsStore.com and get Vitamin Mineral Fusion, get X3, get all the great products that are there that keep us on air at InfoWarsStore.com. They want to scare everybody.
InfoWarsStore.com. Make sure to check it out. We're not going to stop. He says it's going to cost him a couple $100,000 to keep it going to court and everything. A couple $100K just to keep it going, keep the legislation going. They're not going to pay anybody anytime soon. don't think he's worth $1 billion. So I don't think he can afford it. But some people are pointing out that other people have spread misinformation too, harmful misinformation as well. For example, and so that's what I was thinking as I was watching the trial. Is horrible when you have them on trial and you have the results and you have people that are sad or were harassed. People thought Sandy Hook was fake. That's what some people thought. And so those people had to deal with it. And that can be sad. But people talk shit about people on the internet all the time and on news shows all the time. People talk shit about people all the time. So what is it? You can't talk shit about anybody anymore? Like if you think somebody's a liar, you can't say, oh, I think that person's a liar. Because people do say that. Can Trump sue? I mean, these are public figures too, the Sandy Hook families. Who else can sue? Can you sue if you got the vaccine and died? Can you sue Rachel Maddow if you got the vaccine and died? Well, you probably can't sue, but can your family sue if you died? If you died, you couldn't be watching the show right now. What am I thinking? If you were permanently injured and all you can do and the only thing you get out of your day is listening to the Lift the Veil show now, like that's the only joy you have because you're permanently vaccine injured and you weren't listening before, otherwise you wouldn't have gotten the vaccine. Before, when you got the vaccine, you were listening to Rachel Maddow. Can you sue her for shit like that?
But it doesn't sick and don't know they have it. And then they give it to even more people because they didn't recognize they were, right? Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person to person, potentially mutating and becoming more virulent and drug resistant along the way. Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person. A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else. It cannot use a vaccinated person as a host to go get more people. That means the vaccines will get us to the end of this. That it doesn't sick and don't know they have it. And then
she said that. So can we sue her for, like this person says? Now is the door open where people can sue Rachel Maddow for billions of dollars since she pushed a conspiracy theory that led to injury and death in some cases? Conspiracy theorists say that some people actually die after they get the vaccine, not from COVID. Conspiracy theorists, like I said, like the Surgeon General and like some cardiologists and stuff. So that's the news from Alex Jones World. It is important that we care about free speech and this thing. And hopefully, he has the right attorneys who can deal with this, what seems like a travesty of justice, but I don't know the ins and outs. He didn't turn over something during the pre-trial stuff. He didn't turn over some stuff they were looking for, which he says he couldn't even have turned over. They say he could have. He already had to turn over way more stuff than you would have thought was necessary. So that's my legal analysis of the situation, just so you know. He was supposed to turn over some information, which he didn't, claimed he couldn't. They found him guilty by default. They had to go through this show trial where he couldn't defend himself against the charges. Basically had to say that he was guilty. They lied on purpose to hurt people. And then you get the result, $965 million, which nobody will probably ever get, I guess, even if they do. And he already declared bankruptcy, right? So, all right. The shocking results of the poll is, and this is where I have to go with my audience. The audience says, I said, do you trust Tulsi? And that's a difficult word to ask people to trust. But 76% say no. So that lets me know for my future broadcasts. So I'm not going to. So in the future, see, I regulate my speech based on what's popular to talk about. And if you guys say it's not popular to say Tulsi Gabbard is cool, then maybe I'll have to stop saying that. And I'll say, oh, you shouldn't trust Tulsi Gabbard. So the next show, I'll be like, oh, these are the reasons you can't trust Tulsi Gabbard. Then I'm responsive to my audience. And if you keep doing that, if you're responsive to your audience and you just continue to change the way you think just based on what your audience thinks, eventually that leads to success. I think. So I got you guys. But no, I like her. I'm sorry. What can I say? I do like her. And I'd vote for her. I wouldn't vote for that many people. But I might even vote for DeSantis. Believe it or not. People do people trust DeSantis? No, right? I'll run another poll to see. Okay, I'll end that poll. 75%. So say, do you trust DeSantis? Okay, so I'll ask. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. No, I was just joking. No, sometimes I disagree with my audience about things, but sometimes I do things. See, sometimes I disagree with things that are not, it's not good. The Tulsi thing, yeah, I think people can get over. Yeah, I kind of simp for Tulsi. But other stuff, sometimes I have to be careful. I can have controversial opinions that are just not controversial in a good way. You know what I mean? Where it's like I like self-driving cars. I think those are going to be cool. People don't like that. I like AI and stuff. I'm kind of into that stuff. People probably don't like that. Some future stuff I'm kind of into. Like I've been thinking about the brain chip, like these are the things everybody's scared of. I'm mentioning people don't want to see automated cars and stuff like that. Some of that stuff I'm into though. Different, like a brain chip. I was just thinking, I was like, I could see situations where it could be useful, because I think sometimes I don't think right. That would be helpful if I had something that made me think correctly. Do you ever have that issue? I feel like if I had something that made me think correctly, then life would be easier. But see, because I think incorrectly, then bad things happen to me sometimes. You know what I mean? So maybe it's better to integrate. Maybe I need help integrating. You want to hear Joe Biden say something stupid? I have clips of that. You can vote. You can bet. Tell me if this is a good bet. You can bet on whether Kamala Harris is going to be the next president. That's maybe the most interesting bet on predicted.org right now. Is you can bet on whether Kamala Harris will be the next president. And the thing about that bet is you think, oh, well, she'll never win. So there's no way she'll win the next election. But you're betting on whether Joe Biden goes down, basically, in office and whether he's going to be replaced. So that's an interesting bet. And it's like 21 cents, I think, to win $1. Everything's out of $1. So I think it's, so it's like 5-1 odds. So, or 4-1. So that's an interesting bet. Do you think Biden's going to make it? A lot of people said he wasn't going to last as long as he has. So that's a way you can say, oh, if you think he's going down, you can bet on that, because then it will be Kamala if he goes down. I mean, that's pretty much guaranteed the way the system's set up. So is he going to make it? Here he is. What is he talking about here? Here he is just not making sense.
We passed look, what I ran on, I said we're going to deal with energy.
Right.
And the energy problem, we're going to deal with the whole notion of global warming. We passed $368 billion worth of help, which, as the same bankers talk about, is going to bring $1.7 trillion off the sidelines, investment. We passed look, what $1.7 talk about is going to bring $1.7 trillion off the sidelines, investment. We passed look.
I have no clue. He was like, I have no clue. Some amount of money. Then here he is again. That's him sitting with Jake Tapper. I was working with the AI. I'll show you the results of it. This is Joe Biden saying that we're not going to have a recession, or it's going to be chill if we have a recession. No problems, nothing to worry about. So let me play that.
Midterm elections are 4 weeks from today. The economy remains top of mind for voters. JP Morgan Chase CEO said the U.S. is likely to enter a recession in the next 9 months. Bank of America says the U.S. could start losing 175,000 jobs a month. Gas prices are on the rise again. Should the American people prepare for a recession?
No. Look, they've been saying this now. How every 6 months they say this. Every 6 months they look down the next 6 months and see what's going to happen. It hadn't happened yet. It hadn't. There's no guarantee that they're going to be. I don't think there will be a recession. If it is, it'll be a very slight recession. That is, we'll move down slightly. Look, think about what's happened. We have done more. We're in a better position than any other major country in the world, economically and politically. We still have real problems, but look what we got done. We passed so much legislation that significantly makes a point about, for example, the American Rescue Plan, the legislation to deal with inflation, the Inflation Act. We moved along. I mean, there's so much that's been accomplished that the idea that there's an automaticity to a recession is just not there. They've been predicting this off and on for the last.
But you just said that a slight recession is possible.
It is possible. Look, it's possible. I don't anticipate it. What I do think, look, we talk about.
There you go. Look. A slight recession. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Tomorrow, we have news coming out on inflation numbers, and the stock market's been going down a lot over time. So people are losing money. The housing market's really about to kind of crash because mortgage rates have gotten so high. Even Janet Yellen is worried about liquidity in treasury markets, which is what I've been talking about. So, and the Bank of England already had a problem that they had to try to fix. They're supposedly going to stop printing money on Friday. We get to find out what happens next in that country, which might basically have a sovereign debt crisis. And then we could have our own, really, a sovereign debt crisis. And then Joe Biden will be like, oh, yeah, it'll just be mild. No, it's going to be serious. Some people know that it's going to be serious. But a lot of people are just still sleepwalking through it, including the Fed. The Fed is like, oh, we're just playing a game. We're just going to raise rates till unemployment goes up. But by the time that happens, stuff's going to be so messed up. So I hope you guys are prepared. dollars are still good. You know why dollars are good? Because these other shithole countries are even worse than this one. Like, you don't really want to live anywhere else, as far as I can tell. That these other countries are way more effed. Japan, forget about it. UK, toast. China, there are problems. All those places. So we just have a problem with like all of our kids becoming transgender and our education system being messed up and nobody learning how to do math. We have some of those problems. But we do have our own oil and gas on site here. Then we have some other stuff going for us. We grow a lot of food on site here. So we have a lot of the things that we need for survival. We have water. So we should be all right, theoretically. And then we have the world reserve currency, which is just awesome if you have dollars. So save your dollars for now. And then when it's time, buy Bitcoin, silver, gold, whatever, something other than US dollars, because it's going to turn ugly. But for now, it's great. Dollars are great. But they're going down in value, but not as fast as the other pieces of fake fiat paper. Okay, so that's a little bit about the end of the world, which I like to touch on every show. Check the poll. Yeah, so people uniquely, many more people trust DeSantis based on this poll. Many more people trust DeSantis over Tulsi Gabbard. I wonder what it is about Tulsi Gabbard that makes her untrustworthy to everybody. Wonder what it is about her. I've noticed that people feel that way. I don't know why. But it's important feedback. So yeah, only 60% of people said they didn't trust Ron DeSantis. So I have some trans news. So let me cover that. I also have some some vaccine stuff I'm not even going to share with you. Oh, all this news about Fetterman. Yeah, got to cover that because I covered this on the last show. Speaking of gambling, I got to know whether to bet against this guy because I've made money making predictions on people's trajectory before when they have pivotal moments. Like I bet on the guy in Virginia when Northam did the publicity stunt with the tiki torches. I was like, oh no, it was 50-50, nobody knew who was going to win. And the guy did that thing where he had fake tiki torch, fake white supremacists show up to an event. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to work out. I bet against him and I won. So this time, this guy's had a stroke. And we already knew that. People had already been talking about it some. And I talked about it on the last show because he's finally, I guess he hadn't done any interviews before, this guy who had a stroke. And basically hasn't recovered from it, totally mentally. And he's got some issues. And I played it on the last show. He did an interview where he had to have the interview transcribed to him. Well, I watched that interview. So I watched the whole thing. I'll play it for you and then we'll talk about it. I'll play for you what people are sharing. They're saying, wow, like he's messed up. The people on the right. And remember, he's running against Dr. Oz for Senate. So this race matters for the balance of power. This is one reason this guy with the stroke is favored right now in this race. It's like 60-40 betting odds. So here's him talking where people said this answer seemed messed up.
The courage to show up and answer questions. I have the courage to know that I'm going to miss some words, or I may not get it absolutely right. But even though I know this is being broadcast on Facebook, And I'm sure that there are Republican operatives that are watching, gleefully waiting for me to miss words and then put that on blast. But I showed up, and I'm still part of it. So, like if they don't think I'm well enough, they certainly wouldn't have allowed me to want to continue. And if I don't believe I was healthy enough, I certainly wouldn't be putting up on this, walking, live without a net. And last thing, courage to show up and answer questions.
Walking live without a net. Well, I guess people are saying that didn't really make sense. And then people are saying that the mainstream media is covering up for him. So that's another narrative, which is that, the mainstream media is covering up for his problems and saying that he's totally fine. So here's somebody pointing out all the people who said that John Fetterman is fine. There were no issues with his speech, nothing out of the ordinary. Bunch of different people saying that. Then here he is having his interview where he has the interview while it's happening being transcribed to him with some kind of app on his computer. So while she's talking, it's being transcribed. And then he's answering questions. So this is Fetterman.
His campaign required that he be allowed to use a transcription program on his computer during our interview.
I always thought I was pretty empathetic, emphatic. I think I was empathetic. That's an example of the stroke, empathetic. I always thought I was very empathetic before having a stroke. But now after having that stroke, I really understand much more kind of the challenges that Americans have.
His campaign required that he be allowed to use a
So he gets words wrong sometimes. And so anyway, people are calling him out. And I don't know what to say. People are calling him out. I listened to the full interview. He's not that out of it most of the time. Even in that interview where he had stuff being transcribed to him and he messed up on empathetic, the rest of the interview it's not that crazy. So it's kind of like Biden. Like Biden really is goofy sometimes, but most of the time you're like, whatever. That's kind of how Fetterman is. Most of the time you can deal with it. It's no worse than like George W. Bush, for example. I mean, George W. Bush was an absolute retard, president. So we've had that before too. And then we have evil geniuses like Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. This guy, I don't know. I'm not going to bet against him yet, but I'm curious because, like I said, he is favored. So if you bet against him, you get good odds. But so far, I'm not going to bet on that race. But there is other stuff I'm interested in. I'll let you know. Might have to bet on Republicans to win the House because it's like 80 cents to win $1. So you don't win that much. But it's almost a lock. It's almost guaranteed that Republicans are going to win the House. The question is whether they're going to win the Senate. And I don't know. So we're going to follow the different races, though. See if we can predict the winners. We try to get ourselves in trouble predicting winners all the time. So that's that news. Let's see. Oh, there is trans news too. Okay. This is from Libs of TikTok. Let me check I'm going to check my Buy Me a Coffees and see if people are trying to get me to extend the show. Let me check my Buy Me a Coffees. If you want to support the show, I'm going to check them right now. Go to buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil. And you can leave a note there. And if you leave it after the show's over, I'll read it on the next show. Thanks, Jim from Baltimore. Appreciate it. Says good show. Brian M., thanks for the coffee. Appreciate it. Thanks, Tangent Angela. Says, like we say in the South, appreciate you. And then this person who I thought was trolling me yesterday sent me a bunch of coffees. And that's Hobo Tommy, who says, Litecoin is the right coin. Thanks, Hobo Tommy, for the coffees. I thought you were trolling me yesterday with your Litecoin tweets, your Litecoin messages. So I apologize, and I really appreciate the support, Hobo Tommy. says you can shill for Litecoin or you can be a raging California monkeypox super spreader. The choice is yours. Okay. Well, I will shill for Litecoin then. If you keep buying coffees, every time you buy a coffee, I'll come up with Litecoin news. For example, here's some Litecoin news. You can use Litecoin. You can use Litecoin to buy stuff from Elon Musk's Boring Company store. That was reported today by Litecoin. So there's your Litecoin news. And I appreciate it. Yeah, keep buying me coffees. That's cool. And that's it so far. All right. Then I want to get to the trans news. I got enough coffees that I'll give you guys some extra. And then you can and let me check Rockfin. And thanks for the tip on Rockfin. I am monetized over there. Thanks, Vogan Filter, for the tip. I really appreciate it. And thanks everybody who tunes in over there. We're still on Rockfin. If the shit ever hits the fan, Rockfin is the backup setup. Rockfin.com/lifttheveil. So we're there live every day. And then there's also dlive.tv/lifttheveil. So far, so good. You know, wish me luck, basically. I'm doing the reverse. I'm doing the reverse thing. At first, the thing was to be on other platforms. That was the thing to do. Oh, it's cool to be on Rumble. So now I'm trying to do this thing where, oh, no, actually, it's cool to be on YouTube and somehow exist. So that's what we're trying. This is from Libs of TikTok. She's a heavily censored, she is a Jewish person, by the way. Well, because Kanye was talking about the Jews. I don't know if he was talking about like Libs of TikTok. Libs of TikTok seems like she exposes some stuff that's worth exposing, for example. Only because Kanye has been talking about it. That's the only reason I mentioned it. Here is the clip of someone explaining how you don't really need to question kids who might be trans. You actually don't want to ask them too many questions because they're just trying to get trans in a hurry. Here's the clip.
But generally, what I recommend is that you do the minimal amount of time necessary for capturing the information that you need. And the reason, again, goes back to reducing barriers for transgender, nonconforming, non-binary, and diverse folks so that they can move forward as quickly as they can into their next step. When we're saying we have to see them for multiple sessions, that sets up continuous barriers and really perpetuates the system that trans, non-binary, and gender diverse folks need to be put to the test to prove who they are and what they need. And we're not in the service of doing that typically. So the less sessions, the better. I typically will do the session in one visit. But
there's somebody talking about how they do it in one visit, moving them from being non-trans to pushing through to whatever services they get if they say they're gender non-conforming. Do non-binary people don't have to get hormones, do they? I hope non-binary people aren't getting hormones too. That would be outrageous. Non-binary people it is funny if you're non-binary. I mean, that's a funny thing. Being trans is serious. Being trans is very serious. So this person had like a viral video, actually super viral video. Okay. A detransitioner. So detransitioners are kind of popular on social media, which is good because depending on your point of view, if you think detransitioning is good because people maybe make a mistake when they do the transition part and take the hormones and everything. If you think detransitioning is good, then it's good that it's popular and you get a lot of views and stuff if you detransition. If you detransition and talk about it, you can go on podcasts if you want to. And I would talk to these people for sure. It's interesting and it's good because then people who are thinking about being detrans might think, oh, because why I say it's good is some people become trans because they see trans people who are famous and they want to be famous like them, kind of, because most people want to be a YouTuber, right? Most people want to be a TikToker, influencer. So they see trans influencers and they think, oh, how could I be like them and be influential? And they become trans. Well, if you can be influential if you become detrans, then it might encourage good behavior, depending on your point of view. Trans people think detrans is bad. So trans people make fun of detransitioners like this person. So I want to show you that. I'll close this. So this person got testosterone and got baldness from it. So for the podcast, it's a person with male pattern baldness, kind of a little like mine, but maybe even a little more. So I'll play that video for you. Yeah, this is like a viral video from a detransitioner.
Hey y'all, so I got out of my haircut because my hair was driving me nuts, and I shaved it because I'm tired of watching my hair thin out, and it's less distressing if I shave it. So when I talk about being too far gone, I don't really know what else to call it. This is what I mean. This is how deep my voice is. It's gotten deeper over time, and it's settled. This is what I mean by hair loss. And it just keeps getting worse. It keeps thinning. It keeps receding backwards. And I'm not exactly sure that's coming back. Those are the main things when I talk about being androgenized to a point of no return. I really don't see those being fixable. So that's when I talk about, just kind of staying how I am, regardless of how I feel. That's why, just because I don't really see me personally being able to come back from what's happened so far. So I hope that's a little explanatory, just to kind of give a little bit more of a, let me reword that, just to kind of, talk about, give more awareness to the situation, kind of, so you can see where I'm at. Words are not working well with me right now. I'm just going to cut this off. There you go. This is what happens when you give a woman testosterone. This for 5 years. This is what happens, essentially. So, that's it. Stay safe.
Okay, so that's a person who's a detransitioner, who is a girl, and now identifies as female, I guess, but sounds like a boy because of the testosterone, and also got baldness. So I guess that's one thing when people think, oh, I really want to be a guy. They probably don't think, oh, I really want the part of being a guy where you get to go bald. They probably don't think that far ahead. So this person, tragically lost their hair because of the testosterone. I guess if you have the gene where if you have testosterone with it, it makes you go bald, then even if you're a girl, if you get testosterone, you can go bald. I guess that's what I'm learning. I didn't even realize. I didn't even think women could go bald. But I guess if you give them testosterone and they have the gene, then they can. So that's sad. Most women don't want to go bald. So then trans people like Keffels, who is involved. Keffels is this trans person who was involved with dealing drugs to kids, allegedly. Sorry. Some conspiracy theorists who got banned said Keffels was involved in dealing drugs to kids, hormones and stuff. That's what they said about Keffels. But what can I say? All you're allowed to say, I think, is nice things about Keffels. But I don't even know how Keffels identifies. I don't know that much about the person, who is saying the new type of detransitioner where their main complaint is they look like a creepy uncle instead of a Giga Chad is very funny to me. Crying myself to sleep because 11 years of hormones didn't make me look like Amaranth, despite not putting very much effort into looking hot. So just making fun of this person. And there are other memes. I've seen other people making fun of that person for detransitioning. And that's ironic. It's ironic making fun of somebody who could be at risk of suicide, possibly. Making fun of somebody who could be at risk of suicide, basically, especially considering how much suicide is focused on as a part of the gender identity cult. So that suicide is, in some senses, glorified, but also used as a tool to get people to, consent to things. So yeah, that's the way trans people are. Some trans people are to detransitioners. Okay, I think that's all I have for you. I think I got through the news. So we answered a few questions today. We answered a few questions today. We asked if you trust Tulsi. We asked if you trust DeSantis. So now I know where to go with things. She says she's not going to be a Republican anyway, so you don't have to worry that much about Tulsi. Thanks, someone I see who got 5 coffees. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody who supports the show. Been doing it now. I'm just going to do it. Yeah, I'm trying to do it every day. So that's what's going on. Every day, you can tune in right at the time Tim Pool starts, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Lift the Veil, youtube.com/lifttheveil live, dlive.tv/lift the veil, rockfin.com/lift the veil, lifttheveil.substack.com. And that's it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Good to see you. And we'll see you at the next one. All right. I'll see you tomorrow night. For now, that is what it is.